All right, it's 5:36. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order and start with a roll call, please.
Councilmember Gatewood.
Here.
Councilmember Pulapati is absent at this time. Councilmember Sander.
Here.
Vice Mayor Budge.
Here.
Mayor Terry.
Here. Looks like we got a quorum, so I'll ask the city clerk to read the cable television announcement, please.
The meeting of the Rancho Cordova City Council will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on the Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T Uverse cable systems. The meeting is closed captioned at webcast at metro14live.saccounty.gov. Today's meeting will air on Wednesday, June 22nd at 6 p.m. and Thursday, June 23rd at 9 a.m. The meeting can also be viewed at youtube.com/Metro Cable 14. A DVD copy can also be ordered from the city clerk's department, and a webcast of this meeting will also be available on the city's website within 48 hours of adjournment of this meeting.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance, which, considering I can't see anybody else in the room, means our city manager hopefully can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Following that, I'll ask the audience in the room to remain standing, and we'll have Julie Steinbeck with the United Methodist Church of Rancho Cordova, who will give us our invocation. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Cyrus.
Please join me in reciting this prayer. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have Julie in the room? We do. Julie, go ahead and unmute. Julie, can you hear us? Looks like you're still on mute.
Good boy, Jake.
Well, considering Julie, we'll give you one last shot. If not, we'll just take a moment of silence. Julie, can you hear us? Okay, we'll just have a moment of silence here. Thank you. You may be seated. And sorry, Julie, we couldn't get the AV to work today. Maybe we can have you back at another council meeting soon. With that, we'll move on to presentations and item 5.1, recognition of Eagle Scouts Austin Konarski, Garrett Lopez, and Matt Vasquez. And so I have a little bit of a thing here to read, and then I think Councilmember Gatewood's going to take over in the room. So we're recognizing 3 Rancho Cordova residents for recently earning the rank of Eagle Scout: Austin Konarski, Matt Vasquez, and Garrett Lopez. First, I'll provide some background on these 3 young men, and then we'll recognize each with information about their Eagle Scout projects. Austin, Matt, and Garrett met and became friends in kindergarten at Peter J. Shields Elementary in Rancho Cordova. They joined Cub Scout Troop Pack 28 of Rancho Cordova in first grade together. They all continued as Webelos Scouts and joined Scout Troop 601 in Rancho Cordova at 12 years old. Their goal was to earn Eagle Scout rank together, which they have accomplished. In addition to scouting, the 3 boys went to school together and played soccer and baseball together, building a lifelong friendship. The 3 are now 18 years old and just graduated from Cordova High last month, and they will be attending college in the fall. So it gives me great pleasure to recognize these 3 men, and then we have some certificates to hand out to them as well. So congratulations to all 3 of you. I believe we're going to call you up to the front, and Councilmember Gatewood has some proclamations I think I signed earlier today to give to you. With that, I'll turn it over to Garrett.
Hold on, I can work my own stuff. Okay, got it? All right. Can I first have my namesake, Garrett Lopez? Congratulations. All right. This is a certificate of recognition from the city of Rancho Cordova, hereby honors Garrett Lopez in recognition of excellence for achieving the rank of Eagle Scout and, of course, having the name Garrett spelled properly, 2 R's, 2 T's. Exactly. And, after joining the Club Scouts Pack 28 in first grade, oh, you already read all this, and I would just like to say congratulations from our city and our amazing Mayor, Donald Terry. Congratulations. All right. Hang out, hang out. Hang out here, go right there, go in the front so they can get the picture. We'll be right with you. All right, next, I'm gonna nail this name. Austin Karnowski. So close. Almost nailed it. Okay, the city of Rancho Cordova hereby honors Austin Karnowski in recognition of excellence of achieving an Eagle Scout award, signed by our amazing mayor, Donald Terry. Congratulations. It's for you.
It's Kanarski.
All right, Matt Vasquez. All right, in certificate of recognition of the city of Rancho Cordova, Matt Vasquez is in recognition of an excellence of achieving Eagle rank score. Congratulations for all your hard work. This has been signed by the mayor, Donald Terry. Congratulations. Thank you. All right. And personally, I just would like to say it takes a lot to be able to do all the time and energy you guys do. Truly amazing what you guys were able to accomplish. And now, picture time. Oh, Siri's here. Nailed it.
Nail it. It was planned. That was planned, Sherry. Are you a Girl Scout?
All right, smile, guys. Congratulations.
Thank you all. Did I see we have Councilmember Poolapati in the room now?
That's correct.
All right, cool. Then we can move on to item 5.2, which is the reminder that I'm still the youngest city council member on the council. But it's also Councilmember Poolapati's birthday coming up. And so Garrett gets to lead us in singing happy birthday.
All right. Time to sing. Ready? We're going to sing about her birthday, 22nd year of life. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Pick it up, guys. Come on. Happy birthday, dear Siri Poolapati. That's a good one. Happy birthday to you. Yeah. Look,
Oh, that's the funniest thing I ever heard.
One of these days, we need to pull all of the other local governments to figure out, are we the only one that does this? I think we might be one of the only
Yes.
ones. I think so.
We're used to being the best and being
Yeah,
very
right.
different.
There's a few things we do differently for our meetings, but yeah, in general, I think that's one of the ones that other ones are not doing. So with that, we'll move on to public comments. And happy birthday, Siri, and hopefully there's cupcakes or something somewhere in that building for everybody. With that, move on to public comment. Citizens wishing to address the council for any matter not on the agenda may do so at this time via teleconference or by completing and submitting a speaker card to the city clerk, who is the nice lady over there on your left if you're in the room. If you want to make a public comment via teleconference, please use the raise hand feature at the bottom right of your screen. If you're on an Apple product, it's in the top right. If you're participating by telephone and you want to make a public comment, please press *9 to raise your hand. For those participating by Zoom or telephone, please wait to be called upon by the city clerk. For items on the agenda, speakers will be called upon by the mayor at the point on the agenda when the item will be heard. Speakers are encouraged to keep their comments to 3 minutes or less and state the name and community of residence. Under the provisions of the California Government Code, the City Council is prohibited from discussing or taking immediate action on any item not on the agenda unless it can be demonstrated to be of an emergency nature or the need to take immediate action arose out of the posting of the agenda. With that, we'll, do we have any public comment?
Yes, the city clerk's office received one public comment via email that was received by John Hunapole. Close.
Okay.
All right. And he is here in the audience. That's been distributed to the city council, made available to the public in the back of the room, and also on our website. We also have 5 speakers at this time in the council chambers, with the first being Barbara Thomas. Following Barbara is Lori Reed. Following Lori is Randy Satoff. And we'll start with those. And then I will go to Zoom. Yes, Barbara, you are first. You'll have,
Just remember, this is the time to raise your hand or to hit *9 to raise your hand.
Barbara, you'll have up to 3 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing us, and thank you for being the council that I think you are. You've always done a very, very fine job. City is going in a good, positive way. This is a petition regarding seeking relief of our abused senior and elderly residents. It's regarding an encampment in the back on Citrus Road between Coloma and Highway 50. You have the petition, so it says a lot. Peaceful and quiet environment without intrusion of noise, which may be hazardous to their health or welfare. We do not have this. We call the police at least once a day. I'd say maybe even 5 times a day. The noise, the interruption, screaming, yelling, choking, dogs barking, dogs running, free and easy. I call animal services. I call the HOT team. The HOT team works diligently for us. There's nothing they can do. I get comments from some residents as I'm doing a petition. What's anybody gonna do? Who cares? Nobody cares. Nobody wants to hear you. They're not gonna do anything. I'm not buying that, because I think as seniors, we're entitled. We've put our time in. The homeless, I understand, it's a hard thing. And actually, this is not really homeless. These people have built little condos on Citrus Road. So they do have a home. They are not being respectful. The noise is all night long. They have drug dealers come by on their motorcycles. They have cars. I've seen a car drive down Citrus Road, which no vehicles are supposed to be there, at 60 miles an hour and come back. And then I've seen cars drop off, stop at each encampment. I'm assuming it's a drug dealer. What else? Let's see. I have recordings of screaming. So if anybody is interested in hearing it, it's horrible. This gentleman went on for an hour and a half screaming. I realize he was distraught, but that is not my problem. You can check with police. The police have logs, the HOT team. Their suggestion was for us to do this because their hands are tied. We hope to go to county council because I know it's Sacramento County, and I realize the problem is everywhere, but we need some help. We are not legal eagles, so what we put together was the best that we could do and what we thought we should do.
Please wrap up your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to mention and I don't know if there's going to be more commenters about the petition in general. One, I'm surprised that staff directed you to come here, but I would say that I believe the area you're talking about where these individuals actually located isn't within the city. Although it may be some of the same service providers when it's PD or the sheriff's department run out of the same place. But I don't know, Cyrus, if you wanted to weigh in or if there's any staff member that they could connect with, but really we need to be probably rerouting that effort to the county because it's on land that they are responsible for policing.
Yes, Mayor Cherry, you're correct. The section that where we have the
vast majority of the problem is within the unincorporated county. We have contacted them, we've communicated with them, we've been able to get the sheriff and the county health services to partner with us for a couple of sweeps. But we will continue working with them. I would highly recommend that the residents contact Ross Ducharme, our code enforcement manager. We can connect with the county, and we can continue working with the county. Hopefully, we can find a solution to it. But we are well aware of the issue, and we've had numerous conversations and communication with the county.
Thanks, Cyrus. Next commenter, please.
The next speaker is Lori Reed.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. My name is Lori Reed. I live at 107 Wilderness Road. I'm very emotional, so please bear with me. In the Mobile Country Club on Sunrise Boulevard in Rancho Cordova, my home backs up against the Citrus Road encampment. This is my story. Right behind my home are approximately 27 tents and more than double the residents back there, plus their visitors, dogs, etc. Drug deals go on every hour of every day and every hour of every night without fail. Extremely loud noise, music, and more than several dogs barking, which is abusing and continues every hour of every night and every day without stopping. Then I'm yet further abused by the constant arguments, screaming, yelling, and physical altercations of every hour, every day, again, without fail, and again, never stopping. Now we get to the continuing pounding, nailing, chopping wood, burning bonfires, and partying all day and all night. I fear for my health and safety in that there are no sanitary conditions in or around the encampment, and my home and backyard smell like an outhouse. Or worse, raw sewage and trash. I hope and pray every day and night that these encampment residents will be removed. My rights as a senior have been abused, and I demand that my health, safety, and sanity return, as well as my right to quiet enjoyment of my home. Move them. I'm exhausted and sick. There are no quiet Sunday mornings to sit and sip a cup of coffee before church. There are no quiet evenings I can enjoy my home or backyard with friends, pets, and families. I'm turning my families away from visiting so as to keep them safe. I have no place to go to get relief from the stressful situation which I have declared to you today. I need my home and my life back. I need your help. Thank you.
The next speaker is Randy Satoff. Following Randy will be Stan Jones. Following Stan will be Helen Whalen Bashaw.
Good evening, council members. My name's Randy Satoff, and I live in the mobile home park. I butt up against Citrus Road. I've lived there for the last 5 years, and when I moved in, the homeless encampment wasn't as bad as it is today. I have seen numerous drug deals. I have seen actually a gentleman waving a gun in the back, and I had to call the police. Turned out it was an air gun, but the fact that he was waving the gun around in the back caused concern for me. Since this has all happened, it has caused a great deal of stress on my life. I have lost my license now because I was involved in a traffic accident due to having a seizure while driving, which has caused this problem. So I'm no longer allowed to drive, which I enjoy doing, and also caused a bicycle accident that I was involved in because I blacked out while riding my bicycle. So this has caused a great deal of stress on my own life. But my question is, have any of you been back and seen what we deal with in the back? I would ask that you would just take a chance to come back into our community and look over the back wall. I would love to have you come to my address. I would let you look over the wall. Right now, I have a pile of trash that's about this high behind my house. The stench is horrible. It stinks. I cannot enjoy my backyard because they come down the bike trail with the music playing. I've had friends over to look at my backyard, and they see over the wall, and they go, "You deal with that?" I deal with it, but I'm at my wit's end. I cannot take it any longer. I'm asking for you guys to step up. I know your hands are tied. Like you said, it's the county's, But each time we ask someone, the finger gets pointed to someone else. It's the city, it's the county, it's Caltrans. Whose is it? We want to know. So our hands are just like you. We're at our wits' end. Our hands are tied behind our backs. We need help. So anything you guys can do to help us would greatly be appreciated. And by the way, I want to thank you for recognizing the Boy Scouts tonight. I am a former Eagle Scout myself, so thank you for what you also did tonight. Thank you.
Next speaker is Stan Jones.
Good evening. I've given comments on Coloma Road on traffic engineering, and I was here for the meetings with the consultants, engineers on ideas, where 150 people gave ideas on it. I'm appreciative of the city for adopting some of those, and it's the improvements at Coloma and Chase that affect safety. In addition to being a citizen of Rancho Cordova for 35 years, I've also been a volunteer in school, and my kids have attended Cordova Meadows, Cordova Gardens, Cordova Lane, Mills, and where I was a volunteer until COVID came, and Cordova High School. So I appreciate one of the things as Rancho Cordova was developed and Coloma Road was created, they ignored a safety issue, which was on Dolasetto. Dolasetto is next to the creek, which is 2 blocks south of the intersection of Coloma and Chase, for anybody who's just listening to this and isn't familiar with the neighborhood. During the last year, I appreciate the city having prioritized that street and having removed the obstacle where my children and grandchildren walked down Dolasetto in the street, dodging cars before and after school. This last year, Cyrus's leadership and team and priorities with all the other things going on managed to put sidewalks there. Our children no longer have to walk in the street. There is also a crosswalk down there with a sign. First, I didn't understand what it meant because it wasn't on the corner. Now I know it's at next street down where children can cross and they can push a button and cross safely. I appreciate that very much as a parent of children and grandchildren who have attended Mills, Cordova Lane, etc. Cordova Lane is further down, of course, Coloma Road. That was my granddaughter. So the other thing I was surprised at, that last night I came back from a Juneteenth dinner with just family in Fair Oaks, and I'm driving down westbound on Coloma Road. And after I pass St. John Vianney and approaching past Mills, I see signs that were put up there. I mean, you try to get the drunks' attention to tell them that they need to slow down, and there's a turn to the left, and they still don't make it, and people have died as a result, and people have been seriously hurt. Last night, I saw, and I had to drive back there to see it again, and I have a picture of it here for Stacy to leave.
Please wrap up your comments.
The statement is that you've put around the sign. So thank you. Solar panel recharges battery bank that powers speed-actuated flashing lights on signs, warning drivers to slow down and prepare to turn left at Coloma Road and Chase Drive, helping the safety of Mills Middle School and Cordova High School population. And although it does...
Sir, your time's, could you wrap it up, please?
Sure.
We give everybody the same amount of time. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Helen Whalen Bashaw.
Greetings. I'm Helen Whalen Bashaw, and I live over in the Ontario Grande Circle. I have a major complaint. This card was sent out, and this card refers to the fuel tanks that are located on the corner of Bradshaw and Folsom. This card says there's a negative declaration, and what I don't understand is you're adding 2 more fuel tanks, you're adding the ability to have, what is it? Additional rail cars parked there, that will offload 20,000 barrels of biofuel a day. So you're adding to the rail, you're adding 112 trucks or 224 trips a day to Bradshaw. How can first off, I don't get this card, my neighbors do. I live on a dead-end street that goes into the park. If something were to happen with this facility, I'd be a dead person. When I purchased my house, there was no mention in my real estate documents the fact that there was a gas field so many feet from my house. I don't believe it was as big as it is today because I've been in my house since 1983. What I do have a problem with is when there is a dead end, a single in, single out, why isn't the whole subdivision being given one of these cars? One of my neighbors brought this to me. This is a shame on the city. Also is I have sat in this meeting, and just like Stone Creek, you are issuing negative declarations so you do not have to do a CEQA. I find that kind of hard to believe because when we're dealing with the Cassis property, we talked about the fact that there would be additional traffic, and Sacramento County said the Bradshaw Road could not handle additional vehicles. So how are we going to be adding 112 trucks a day, up to 7 days a week on this road? I want to know what the kill zone is. What I want to know is what's the radius if that place were to be victim to a terrorist, how many people are going to be taken out? So for this to be a negative declaration, I find that absurd. I find that the fact that you've issued this document, put in the mail on the 10th, so that starts the date. My neighbors get it on the 13th. They've lost 3 days, and I get it afterwards. When is the city going to stop issuing negative declarations and start using CEQA for what it was made for? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mayor Terry, that's all the speakers that I have in the council chambers. I'm now going to go to Zoom. The first caller has a telephone number with area code 916-804. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, and you'll have up to 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, caller. Make sure to say your name and the community of residence. You're now unmuted. Go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, everyone. This is Faiza Mughal in Lincoln Village. I just wanted to say thank you so much to Councilmember Garrett Gatewood. We had a Juneteenth community event with Spark, with ITLV, and other partners in Lincoln Village Park last night. We gave away 100 free meals, 100 kids' books, 30 helmets, 10 bikes, some gift cards, and thanks to Councilmember Gatewood, 2 ninth-generation Apple iPads, which was like the coveted prize. He also made time to stop in and say hello. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for supporting our community, supporting Juneteenth, and putting the time behind it and making time for us. I really appreciated that. And we all had a great time, and I'm loving the community picking up on Juneteenth and seeing multiple events, and I hope that trend continues. Also, I'd like to add happy early birthday to Councilmember Filipati. And that's all I got to say. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks,
Faiza.
Faiza.
I don't see any other hands in Zoom. So with that, we'll complete public comment. We'll move on to council reports, and we'll start off with Councilmember Gatewood.
Thanks, guys, for showing up. All right, so I'm going to start with the first one. I just want to thank Faiza. It takes a lot for private sector and people in the community. The ITV Lincoln Village is an excellent example of the community coming together and having events. So thank you for taking the time to throw the Juneteenth event. If you think about it, that was hundreds of free meals that were given out to the community. It's just an honor to be able to serve when I see people that are willing to step up on their own dime and energy and build stuff. And I'm just lucky that I'm a friend of FISA because she is an amazing person. And to do that for our community is awesome. So went there, lots of people showed up. They had this cool art example. I met the lady that has over 20 minority girls that are actually going to be getting trained in technology and workforce advancement. So that's a cool one that our Measure H funds were able to fund. And then the artwork from their group was amazing. And then FISA was over there trying to fix bikes. And thank you for helping. And that's where, I mean, it's sad to say I'm in my 40s, but I hadn't changed a bike tire ever before. And yeah, that's a pain. And so they taught me how to do that. I'm going to read this off because I think it's good to know, and I've ran into a couple people that don't actually understand what is the Juneteenth holiday and why. Well, you all know about Emancipation Day and Freedom Day. Juneteenth commemorates June 19th in 1865 when federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas, and gave the word.
Galveston.
No, that's not how you say it. You're wrong. Listen. Texas says stuff differently. You probably don't understand that, Linda.
Galveston.
I did. I said it. Yeah, look, it's just weird. Texas. And gave the word to the enslaved African Americans that they were free. For more than 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, these people had not realized and had been given the words, and they freed the slaves. So this is technically the last day that the United States had slaves. And so that's what we celebrate, is the emancipation and the freeing of the slaves in the United States. And thank you for my city for being willing to have some events for this and support people that are throwing an amazing Juneteenth. So happy Juneteenth to everybody. Number two, I went to the California Capitol Document Film Festival. One of my counterparts, the mayor, is big on documentaries, and so it's cool. Not only is it cool, but it's cool because we had a bunch of places that you could go out of the heat and see these amazing documentaries. And even a neater part is due to the Measure H funds, we started our own film group in the city of Rancho Cordova. And what's going to happen, as I see it already happen, is they couldn't throw it for 2 years. Then it was this bigger event. And these are the kind of events that become trademark for Rancho Cordova. So we could have our own, I'm hoping that it'll be this big event that's always the Capitol Documentary Film Festival. And so that happens almost always the same time because they say these kind of events slowly build up and then there are these big events. So that's awesome. Congratulations to BJ's Auto Body, 60 years in Rancho Cordova. It's always good to see small business owners that have lasted and are looking to hand down. I want to thank the Black Bureau Brunch for honoring me for Juneteenth. Really, the honor goes to my city for being the ones to elect the first Black council member and the first Black mayor. And you also got to say amazing thank you to Donald, who harassed me and gave me the opportunity to become a council member and the first Black mayor. So if you're ever mad about anything, I always say that it's Donald's fault. And at that point, I just like to say thank you.
5 years in, I don't get to keep being blamed for these things. With that, we'll move on to Councilmember Pulapati.
It's
Please.
Donald's fault. He didn't say which Donald, so I'll take it.
That's Sherry, you ain't my fault. You got to like it all on your own.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Garrett, on reading out Juneteenth because it is we have to recognize and we have to make it more aware of why this is celebrated or why we should recognize this. And those of you that have a holiday today, great, you got to actually enjoy a Monday off too as well. And I also did attend the California Capitol Documentary Film Festival. And it was really cool for me to attend this one because, you keep seeing about all these Sundance film festivals and all of these where we have documentaries that are showcased. And now I got to see how that's done. And next year we're going to go bigger, better, and we're going to probably have like a red carpet too and take photos. And it's going to be really cool. And we're going to make this, more festive moving forward, but it was a really fun one to attend. I also attended the chamber lunch where we had the District 3 Supervisor, Rich Desmond. He spoke about, his involvement with the city of Rancho Cordova, his history, and how we're going to help use the ARPA funds on housing, homeless, and economic recovery. So that was a really good informational event, very well attended. And I also was in the Elk Grove School District 2x2. We talked about an update on busing. Elk Grove School District is actively recruiting bus drivers at this point. There was a lot of concern of shortage last academic year. They are actively recruiting, and they are going to be the highest paid in the region. They also did talk about the change of start of school. I think next year it's going to start at 8:30, which is, I think that's a California mandate. On top of minds for all of us when we attended anything school related was the Texas school shootings, and we wanted to talk about what the schools are doing in terms of school safety. The Elk Grove School District had a comprehensive school safety plan. They talked about their contracts with the Sacramento Sheriff and how they have with Elk Grove PD and how they have 12 officers and deputies always on duty, moving from school to school, checking out the schools. They also send out communication to parents and guardians of the students to explain the importance of how to safely store guns and the legal obligations associated with that, especially with protecting minors from accessing guns. And there is a state law that now has criminal charges on adults when a child gains unsupervised access to these stored firearms. So there is all of this that the school district is taking pretty seriously, and we should too. Those are the things I think that I attended, and a very happy Father's Day to all the fathers and father figures out there. Thank you for everything that you do. Your day was yesterday. Today is for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. With that, we'll move on to Councilmember Sander.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to thank our public commenters tonight. I thought those are some very moving and on-point comments, and I really appreciate it. I value that we can do that. Valued a lot that we can do that in our city. Perhaps, I hope, better and maybe even differently, Mr. Mayor, than our neighbors. So that's a point of pride for Rancho Cordova. So thank you guys for your heartfelt and very much on-point comments tonight. I attended on behalf of the National League of Cities something called the Capstone Conference last week in Memphis, and it was interesting being in Memphis. I haven't been there since I was probably a graduate student. I would drive through between my home and my school in New Orleans. That city has suffered an awful lot from, I guess, the modern economy and the loss of jobs. And so as you go through Memphis now, you see things that aren't quite Detroit, if you're familiar with what Detroit looks like now with vast empty blocks and abandoned housing, but there's definitely some serious post-industrial blight in Memphis. And it was interesting discussions I had with some leaders in Memphis, because we, of course, in Rancho Cordova face that same challenge with our old suburban neighborhoods. We have to find ways to keep them vital, keep them healthy, keep people investing in them. And that's what we have focused on for 20 years since we became a city. I would actually argue that's why we became a city, why our population was motivated to do it. So it was interesting to visit a place that was enduring the real downside of that long-term suburban decline that pretty much happens in every community. I was also able to make contact there with a lot of corporate interests. The main point of that conference was to act like a think tank and talk about how cities in our country could better interact with the private sector to provide better outcomes for our residents, whether it's utilizing functions that the private sector is better at than government, or whether it was finding ways that government can behave more like the private sector, or anything in between. So it was a very healthy discussion. I can apologize to Cyrus publicly for filling up his email box a little bit with ideas, but that's what happens when we go to a conference. I was there representing NLC because I'm the second vice president part of my duties as second VP. Let's see. We have had an awful lot of track activity in the past couple of weeks, and I don't know if I've reported all of that out to you. We've hosted 2 major meets with literally thousands of kids in attendance. It's a remarkable thing to see the Cordova track so well utilized. Tents set up all over the place by track parents. I did think I reported 2 weeks ago on how we had multiple events going on. Softball, a major picnic in the park, and this giant track meet happening in Cordova, all in that same zone. And we handled it all as a city. I'm really proud of us. The cool news today is we're about to send our kids off to a qualifying meet for the Junior Olympics. So you got to get through this meet in order to get to the Junior Olympics. You might remember last year we sent 2 kids from Rancho Cordova to the Junior Olympics from our track club. This year we're lined up with 25 qualified, and based on their numbers possible, depending on how they perform this next weekend, we could potentially have over 20 kids participating in the Junior Olympics, up from just 2 last year. So it's a pretty remarkable impact for the experience of those kids, as well as all the kids who are around them seeing this happen in our community. So I'm really excited by that. I think I'm going to end my report with that. We've got some interesting meetings coming up this week, 2x2 with the school district, talking about some of our Measure H projects and some other impactful things. And we've also had some ongoing discussions about the sales tax measure that is not a government-sponsored measure, but rather a citizens' initiative, and what role STA plays in that versus the connector, versus SACOG, versus individual jurisdictions like the city of Rancho Cordova. So I've had meetings on all those topics, and I have many more coming up, and I will report on those in more detail at a future date. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, David. Vice Mayor Budge, you're up.
Thank you. So like others have reported, I would tell you that I had a great film at the California Capitol Film Festival. It was just absolutely a terrific event. I was pleased to join Charles Lago, the head honcho over there, in a radio interview with California Capitol Radio, where we had an opportunity to talk about the hopes and aspirations and what was coming. The weekend was full. It was busy. As Garrett said, it was in several locations, which was a great thing. And I would hope that in the future, the Sacramento Bee would remind their reporters, especially their new reporters, that in general, they support arts and culture events in this region, and especially the debut of arts and culture events that are expected to grow as time goes on. On a routine basis, we had a regional transit meeting. Last month, the issues at regional transit were approving a budget or unveiling the year's budget. This time it was the general manager evaluation, who obviously is doing a great job over at regional transit. And right now, the statistics for ridership coming back after the pandemic are off the charts because of the remarkable increase in gasoline prices. That's, one goes up, one goes down, and that's what happens. We're still celebrating kids' graduations at all levels, high school, college. The art members exhibit at the MAC, the Mill Station Arts and Community Cultural Center, was really, really lovely. There were, art is subjective. Not everything appeals to everybody. The variety of art at the MAC this last couple of weeks was really amazing. I attended the graduation of the leadership class for this year. I had sponsored one of the participants, as Dan and Bob and I have always done in the past. And again, I encourage my colleagues who have not yet been to leadership to do that. Garrett's right. We had a great time at B&J Auto Body. Had no idea how comprehensive their services were. I think it was probably very nice to know that Ken and Sydney Cooley have taken their cars there for repairs over time. A lot of us attended the Building Industry Association reception at one of our local breweries in the Beryl District, and it was really dominated by a lot of people who've been in the industries for such a long time, people that my husband and I have worked with over time, and it was really great to catch up with longtime friends. If nobody knows yet, we have a very prominent restaurant that is just open as Roosters. It is owned by
It's
two young
Roo
men.
Star.
Okay, Roostars.
Galveston, Texas.
Yeah, well, it's
It's
Galveston.
about, anyway, are we going to play semantics all night long here or what?
We got it. And so it's owned by two young men who are Cordova graduates. And yes, you got to check out the chicken because it's supposed to be hot chicken, and some of it was really quite hot, kind of like Nashville chicken. So, and then finally, I, like Siri, was very impressed to hear our new supervisor, Rich Desmond, talk about his hopes and aspirations for not only the county, but for also for his time representing Rancho Cordova. Rich really does know Rancho Cordova, so it was great that he was the one that we were able to encourage to take half of the city, knowing that we needed to be split up. He actually really was the Highway Patrol commander out here, and I'm thinking it was a good 10 years ago, if maybe not 15. But he's been headquartered here in Rancho Cordova in the past, and as he said, was extremely pleased to see the way in which the city has grown and prospered, and looks forward to helping us do that in the future. He understands our goals for Rancho Cordova, the need to serve our restaurants, our residents, the desire to serve our veterans. I think we'll certainly enjoy having Rich as one of our now 2 representatives at the County Board of Supervisors. And that's my report.
Thank you, Linda. I'll be pretty brief. I already talked about the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and because at our last meeting I was still in Reno, but so some of the takeaways, and I know we've talked about it a little bit, but really focusing on and you know, in light of even the comments that we heard tonight around homelessness and the impacts that that's had come from encampments or just in general, whether that's affected a family member or anybody else, that one of the strategies around looking at what's called a functional zero, which is about figuring out how we have enough beds for the targeted populations that we're talking about. But even talking through those concepts, which I know we spend a lot more time talking about affordable housing and other things around meeting market demands, still part of that conversation has to be around health and safety, not only of our residents, but also of our homeless residents that clearly are affecting other residents within the city. I'll also point out, yes, I was at the Cal Film Documentary Festival kickoff. A little disappointed I didn't, just because of other scheduling things, I didn't get a chance to get to more of the films, but I echo what I heard from Linda and from Garrett, that I think this is an event that can build on itself in the future as it gets known for being this. I know one of the things we heard from our executive director there was, because of a spike in COVID cases in the Sacramento area, that a handful of the filmmakers canceled their trips to even come because of COVID related issues. Plus, you know, if you just look at what happened in the last 2 weeks when it's come to airlines, just getting around this country has not been a very easy thing for people to do or to get to certain things. So hopefully as we see this event continue to build, but just looking at the lineup that they had put together just seemed fantastic. We're still coming out of a pandemic, and you know, I'm absolutely willing to give them the benefit of the doubt that it will take a while for an event like that to gain traction. I think we can all remember back when South by Southwest was a concert festival, and it sure as heck ain't that today. I did get the opportunity, not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before, I believe, to go and speak to the media and also thank Rebuilding Together and a handful of volunteers that were out in Lincoln Village to assist a homeowner with building some fences and doing some yard work and some other things like that. It's a really great example of, a handful of years ago, or at least when I started on the council, and I always like talking about Rebuilding Together and this example, because I think it's a great example about not reinventing the wheel and finding partners that we can work with and finding ways that we can get them resources to address things that we want to have happen. But years ago, when I was early on in my council career, Lorianne came to give a proclamation and thank, 20 employees from VSP. And Lorianne had spent countless hours working with Home Depot and Lowe's and getting paint donated and lumber donated and all kinds of other things so that VSP could do a service day to help somebody fix a fence, paint the front of their house, and do a couple other projects. And David, I want to say it was you that actually piped up and said, there ought to be a nonprofit that does that. And lo and behold, after you making that comment, I mentioned that there is one. It's called Rebuilding Together, and we should try to figure out a way to fund them and work with them. Fast forward now 6 or 7 years later, we're averaging $100,000 or so a year to them. They've probably fixed up 30 or 40 homes in the city using Measure H funds. And again, this is something that existed. They didn't really operate within Rancho Cordova until we were able to fund them. And then one of their 2 rebuilding days moved from the county of Sacramento to us. And I think we've been reaping the benefits ever since. And it's been a fantastic tool for our code enforcement folks to identify homes and homeowners that have projects that are just more than they can handle and see if it's something that Rebuilding Together or Habitat for Humanity can work with them on. Had a chance to speak to, I believe it's called the Sacramento Council for the North State BIA last week and share kind of what's going on within our communities and what's going on in the long term as far as planning and permitting and those kinds of things. I will say that the overarching theme that I was hearing from home builders was interest rates are really changing what this market looks like. And if you start to think about all of the subcontractors and suppliers that rely on or supply home builders, to imagine that all slowing down by 30, 40% maybe by the end of the year could do a lot of economic damage within our community. So while at the same time, we probably won't see double-digit home value increases, every year for the next 5 years like we did, and I don't necessarily predict some sort of housing crash. At the same time, there's a lot of ancillary industries that rely on new homes being built. And if they go 10 or 20% slower, that can make a big difference in economic output in the region. I think Siri talked about kind of the most pressing thing that we heard from the Elk Grove Unified conversation. We had some conversations around the next high school, middle school that may be built within the city. They have, if I remember, they have secured their architect. They are starting the design of that. But we're still probably, we are years away from them breaking ground on that. Odds are they'll need to secure and be building at least 2 more elementary schools in that neighborhood before they'll even get to the point of pulling the trigger on a 7-12 school. But Elk Grove's, proven to be a great partner over the last handful of years in looking at a phased approach to the high school and a lot of other things that are going to save us years in the making of bringing that school to fruition. But I guess the joke I made this to the BIA, and I'll make it here, is that some of these projects are like building a cathedral, right? You're going to build something that you may never actually see built in your time of service. But it's something you want to continue to work on and continue to move forward because ultimately it's what's best for our community, even if it's going to take longer than a lot of us hoped it would. And I think I'll stop there and hand it over to the city manager to see if he has a report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of brief items. I was honored to have been invited to attend the annual board meeting of the Greater Sacramento Economic Council as a panel speaker. We had a good presentation on economic development accomplishments in the city in the last few years. The noteworthy item that we discussed and was presented at length was Solidigm, the new company that's relocating or starting to expand in Rancho Cordova. This is a spin-off from Intel that is going to start with about 750 employees and ultimately will grow to, based on the presentation by the CEO of the company, Rob Crook, who I had the pleasure of meeting on that day, would potentially could grow to about 3,000 employees. So this is a great, exciting accomplishment for the city to be able to bring this caliber of company and this caliber of jobs to the city. I also wanted to acknowledge that our economic development team, who's been participating on our 50 Alliance, what we call the 50 Corridor Economic Development Alliance. This is in partnership with the City of Folsom, El Dorado County, Sacramento County, and the Chambers of Commerce in all of these communities on finding ways and developing strategies to attract more businesses to our area and to this region. And they meet on a regular basis, and a great deal of good discussion, good conversation is happening in that area. And lastly, I wanted to remind the council and the community that we have planned a community meeting on Monday, a week from today, on June 27th at 5:30 p.m. here at the City Hall, where we would discuss the proposed warehouses and industrial buildings in Stone Creek. So for those of you who are interested to attend, that meeting would be held a week from today at the City Hall. And that's my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Cyrus. So with that, we'll move on to consent calendar items.
Cyrus, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I realized I skipped something in my report. And Cyrus, you were at the same tour as I was.
Oh, yes.
With Charles Morone from Strong Towns. He's a consultant. Strong Towns is an organization that focuses on economic health and healthy development patterns of cities. Specifically, his training is as a civil engineer and a planner. So he's very focused on civil engineering and maintenance of infrastructure and the costs that occur over time to jurisdictions. So he came and toured Rancho Cordova last week. And Cyrus, if you want to take it from there.
Sure. Now, we had a great meeting. We had the members of our team, the city's planning and transportation team, as well as SACOG staff that toured the community. And Chuck Morone is a former transportation engineer who's started this organization called Great Strong Towns, and has a great deal of good information available, basically free of charge to the communities and to the public for good transportation planning and good planning period. So great discussion. We were able to tour some of the work that we've done on Folsom Boulevard. We had an opportunity to look at our future Civic Center site on Folsom Boulevard, and we're able to share some thoughts and some ideas and some input from Chuck. I was also with a group of some members of our team were able to attend an evening session that Chuck Morone had at the city of Citrus Heights. He had also toured the Sunrise Marketplace and had a broad presentation on what makes communities strong and which areas and potentially what loopholes or pitfalls they have to avoid. So good discussion. We try to invite and be involved in discussions with experts of this caliber, just to make us better in planning our future and planning our transportation network for future. Thank you.
Thank you, David and Cyrus. Hearing nothing else, we'll move on to consent calendar items. And consent calendar items consist of matters deemed routine and non-controversial by staff unless a member of the council wishes to pull an item for individual consideration. All items will be approved by one motion. Colleagues, do you have anything to pull?
Hearing none, I'll move approval of items 9.1 through 9.14.
Okay, we have a motion by Budge. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion by Budge, a second by Pulapati. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Pulapati,
Yes.
Councilmember Gatewood,
Yep.
Councilmember Sander,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Budge,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Aye. Just to make sure, because I heard some background noise when Garrett was talking. Was there somebody that was trying to say something? Okay.
Maybe we should ask, we should probably have asked if there were any public comment,
Oh, you're right.
because we had so many
Public
items.
comment? Thanks, Linda. Was there any public comment for those items?
The city clerk's office did not receive any public comment for those items, and I do not see any hands that are raised in Zoom.
Thanks, Linda. We have no consent public hearing items. We have no public hearing items, so we'll move on to regular calendar items. Our first calendar item will be discussion and approval of council member appointments to regional boards, commissions, and committees. It was pointed out to me earlier today, I guess, that the list of appointments that's in the agenda is the current appointments, not what I had submitted probably 4 or 5 months ago now. So I'll just reiterate what I had proposed that we tabled until we were going to have another visioning session or something that never happened. And I believe, Garrett, you asked to have this on the agenda. So
I did.
the only changes I was going to make, so if you're looking and referring to the current list, the only changes I was going to suggest making was moving Siri to the Cable Commission, Garrett to the connector, and I was going to replace myself for Linda as the alternate for SACOG. Those were the only changes that I had. I don't know if anybody else had any other ones, or we want to discuss the ones I've proposed.
Oh, you're moving me to we wanted to move me to the alternate for Siri for the Cable Commission, and then Siri would like to be the alternate on the connector, if that's okay.
Mayor Terry, can we bring up the appointments on the screen?
Sure.
Thank you.
I can't do that, but you can do it if you
Yeah,
want.
we will.
Okay.
It would just be helpful for us to see who.
Sure. I just want to make sure when you're asking me that I make it very clear that I have the power to do that.
Got it.
Can you just click the button, Donald? Please just stop.
I can't. I would, but I can't. I have no presentations. I have no handouts.
So we'll start with page number 1, if that's okay, if there's any changes or recommendations.
Wait, can you go back to the first one? Because it's wrong, I think.
This is page
Unless-
1.
Huh?
This is page 1. Let's start here, if that's okay.
What were you just on that had 2x2s?
We were on page 5.
Oh, okay. Well, that Sac City Unified one looked like it said Garrett and David, and it's not. It's me and Garrett, I think. But anyways, so SACOG, I think we talked about this a little bit, but the reasoning behind that was the fact that David, as second vice president of the NLC in out years, is going to probably not be able or not being as available for some of these commissions. So there had been some discussions at previous visioning sessions and things like that, start preparing for SACOG and some other ones. So that was one that I had offered to move in as the alternate, so I could at least start getting the agendas for it.
Excellent.
In case anybody wants to talk about that, was my reasoning behind that.
Okay, so that's SACOG. All right.
The connector, that would move Siri into the connector as the voting member, and we would move.
No, I'm the voting member, Siri is the alternate.
I'm sorry, Garrett, you would be the voting member, Siri would be the alternate. Yes,
Excellent.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll say that I'm currently chair of the connector. I think if we do the swap, Garrett would be added, obviously, in my place, and the chairmanship would probably be handed on to the vice chair, is my guess. Because you want a little bit of experience, I guess, before you serve as chair. That's what that
Yeah.
board said they would do.
Yeah.
Last week, I was involved in some really in-depth negotiations. Oh, actually, I should say for the past month or more.
Right.
That are pretty technical and sort of tap expertise that SACOG and Connector. I'm not sure how happy the Connector would be with swap. Nothing against Garrett. It's just the SACOG connection, because I'm the only one that serves there and at SACOG. So I think we just need to tread carefully there with those sort of 3 points going on.
So, David, I would second your concern because I understand what the issues were. I also think it's important that whoever is at the connector understand how the connector got to where it is today. And you and I are the only ones who have been a part of this process since it first arose out of SACOG in 2005 or so. And your point is extremely well taken. Given the deals that have been worked out this last month that enables that new Measure A to go to the ballot, it's really important that whoever's there understand what the implications are.
Yeah. Well, just so you guys
I will
know,
say,
when it comes to the
Garrett
connector,
was in the room.
I was the only council member that was in the room with those negotiations. Me and David went to toe to help out to make sure that negotiation. So I am actually clear with
Right.
what comes in the Southeast connector, because I had to educate myself to be able to intelligently argue to make sure Rancho Cordova gets what's best for it.
Good. So why don't you leave David as the prime, let him serve out his year as the chair, and Garrett, that way you'll be ready to step in when he's not, not as the chair, but you'll be ready to step in when he steps down.
I think, when we look at any of these, there's going to be a period of transition no matter what it is. If this was 2 years ago and we were talking transportation authority, we would have had the same argument when it came to the tax measure and things like that. So I mean, in the grand scheme of things, we need to be prepared to move some of these around anyways, just because people aren't going to be available for all of these things or to get this in depth with meetings. So again, I would reiterate, I would still like to make the changes when, now. I wanted to make them 4 months ago, and that doesn't mean that David wouldn't have been heavily involved in these conversations if he was the subject matter expert. So we can rely on people to get somebody else up to speed and not lose beat. And I think that's completely reasonable. But that's just my 2 cents.
Well, from a regional perspective, when people sign on to be chair of one of these agencies, the other members and the staff at that agency expect them to do their year. It's kind of odd for us to do turmoil in the middle of the year.
I've experienced it myself at least 3 or 4 times in the last 10 years that these commissions have changed chairs in the middle of the year. Or in the middle of their term. Some of them aren't even a 1-year term. And so some people don't get reelected. And, there are times that people don't finish these terms often. So.
Whatever.
So Mayor, do you think that since Councilmember Sander is chair, that we could actually push more of our agenda?
I'm sorry, you cut out. I didn't hear that whole question, Siri.
Since Councilmember Sander is a chair, that actually puts us in a better position this year. And like Linda suggested, is it wise to switch halfway through? I don't know how many more months Councilmember has for being chair.
Yeah, I don't either.
Just to the end of the year.
Yeah, and my proposed changes were made before anybody was chair of anything.
Yeah.
Too. So this was I proposed this 6 months ago.
That was then, and this is now.
Thanks, Linda. So I mean that's going to be the same argument when it comes to the library, not the library, the cable commission, right? Garrett, you're chair of the cable commission this year.
Yep, I'm chair.
Not sure what that gets us, but yeah, that's true too.
In this context, if the Councilmember Sander were alternate, can he still be chair?
No, because I would be the one.
There would only be one voting member at a time.
Okay.
So. Plus, more than likely, when you take over as the Cable Commission chair, they're not going to have a problem with it because you're the representative of Rancho Cordova.
I understand cable commission, but given what we want out of the Southeast Connector, this kind of seems, I'm wondering, would we be able to get more of an agenda passed, given that we have somebody who's experienced and in the chair position?
I mean, arguably, the issue that I believe has been referenced here more than once between the connector and SACOG was a very timely issue that, as far as I understand, if it's not completely resolved, it better be in the next week or two, or it doesn't, there's not going to be much more to talk about. It's going to go on the ballot in some form or another, or it's not going to go on the ballot, one of the two. But the opportunity, and I still don't understand how local governments and commissions and boards have any say over a citizen-led initiative. I still don't really get what the negotiations have been with some of those, and part of that's because I don't serve on either of these right now. But for us to not take action for 6 months because of something that is probably going to be settled, either has been settled or will be settled in the next 2 weeks, I don't really think is a very virtuous decision to make. But again, that's me in thinking that as much as we have history here with some people, we have some people that have some breadth and experience of these, that the point of moving some of these around is to allow other council members to gain that same level of experience in other areas. So that, frankly, David's not the only person that we can go to ask these questions or to have these conversations with, because he's served on most of these for the time that he's been here. And frankly, that part of this, and David, I don't know if you want to weigh in here or not, that's fine. Your expectations and my understanding of National League of Cities is that, you're going to have your hands full in the next couple of years. And the point is to try to get some people on these commissions in a timely manner to where people know what they're doing before they have to know what they're doing and to be doing it on their own, because maybe you won't be around to answer some of those questions in a year because you'll be busy, which is fun.
So in 2024, there will definitely be some squeeze on my time. And I'll have a better idea of how big that is. I mean, frankly, this year has been less taxing than I expected as second vice president. So maybe that'll continue to be the case. We can hope. But there will be some need for me to prune down my appointments, I think, in 2024. As for this year, Donald, I guess I could say is that there's an MOU being negotiated between SACOG, the connector, and STA. It at least has to be a two-party agreement between STA and SACOG. So the ballot measure people are there sort of to bless it.
Right.
And I guess they might sign it, but technically you're exactly correct. That's a completely independent effort. But how these public agencies respond to potential passage of the ballot measure, that's sort of the big deal. And that is still not yet settled with all those three agencies. And again, we need at least STA and SACOG to get it done. So,
and right now that alignment, and again, this is the conversation that David and I had earlier this year, was I'm on STA now, and the alignment of SACOG with them, I think, is still a good conversation, which again, it was one of the reasons I suggested moving myself to the alternate for that. But again, we're talking about kind of two things all at once here, but
right.
But you're right. The implementation of that tax measure next year is going to be huge, but at some point we're going to have to pull the Band-Aid off and make some changes for some folks. And these are the ones that, again, in talking to the council member, these are the ones that I've had, expressions of interest to change. So I'm trying to accommodate that as best I can, or at least in the recommendations that I made earlier this year.
So I will continue to believe that it is inappropriate to change when David is chair. And it seems to me that we should probably take a vote on this particular issue. And I would move that we leave Sander as the primary on the connector and replace me with Garrett as the alternate for the remainder of this year. That's a motion.
Okay. I have a motion on that item. Is there a second? I'm sorry, whoever that was, I barely got the word out. Who is it and what did you say?
Second,
Mayor,
Second by Sander.
before we take this motion, I'm not really, I'd like to have more understanding on where we are in this chair versus this switch, because obviously I was in favor of the switch, but I really need to understand a bit more about exactly where we are. Are we going to just like hot potato it, or is it going to break things if we switch? Because
So the first answer to what it is, Linda has made a very specific motion that has a second. It is to leave David as the voting member for the connector through the end of the year, is what I just think I understood. Linda, correct me if I'm wrong. And to replace Linda with Garrett as the alternate. That would be for the rest of the calendar year. That doesn't affect any of the other recommendations that I made. Well, we can take those as we get to them.
No, I understand. On this particular one, I would like to understand a bit more before I vote on it, because right now I don't know where they are in that transition phase of what the chair can hold in his authority, Councilmember David can hold in his authority as chair. Can we move this topic to the next meeting where we understand more about what happens with this?
Personally, we're 6 months overdue on this.
I
I'd prefer
understand.
the agenda again.
And
That's
6
just me.
months ago, this decision would have been a lot easier.
Well, okay, so hang on. So we have a question in front of us. We have a motion and a second. So we're going to take a vote, Siri. So if you have questions to David or to somebody else that serve on the connector that you need additional context to help you make a vote, you should ask those questions now. Because
So I have a comment. From my perspective, if Siri and Garrett wanted Siri to be the alternate as opposed to Garrett, then I certainly would amend my motion. But I do understand Siri's comment about what power, if any, the chair of some of these boards and commissions to which we have appointments, the question of how much power any of the chairs have. And it's not a matter of power so much as long-term credibility, and the fact that there's never been anybody but David and myself who have served on the connector from the time of its inception, because I was the representative to SACOG at the time. And so to replace at least to replace both positions on this committee with two people who do not have any background, and I don't mean that negatively, it's simply a fact, who do not have much background in the origin or the goals or the aspirations of the connector, seems completely inappropriate. So a good way to learn what this is about is to become the alternate. So it's a perfect role for Garrett or Siri.
All right, so just.
well, hang on. I just want to clarify something, Linda, because you said something about amending your motion. Your motion is to leave.
I
David.
did, Donald. I said specifically, if Garrett and Siri decide between themselves that they rather have Siri be the alternate rather than Garrett, that's fine. I would amend the motion to do that. But it needs to be the two of them, not you and me.
All right, my turn.
Thanks for the clarification.
Just so we're clear, and I appreciate Linda's opinion, but I have read, and the connector is one of the few people that actually support me 100%. That group, Derek and Michelle, and so I am very well aware of every goal that comes with it and how to support the connector. And out of all the council members, was one of the few that was in the negotiating room for the Siri when they came up with the ideas. They came up with the Measure A bill that's coming out. So I think I'm quite sort of suited to be able to do
I have
that.
no doubt
So-
in Councilmember Garrett's capabilities. I am kind of hesitant on the fact that we have a Rancho Cordova council member as chair of one of these, and it's not in good standing to switch a chair midway through, which is why my question is, Councilmember David, how many more months do you have to serve as chair?
It's a calendar year appointment, so January to December is the way it normally runs.
Okay.
And you asked a question about, what powers does the chair have? Like most of these agencies, the chair doesn't have, any like absolute powers. We have the power to put things on an agenda or direct staff to take certain actions, probably a little more power in closed session items, perhaps to direct staff on how to arrange those things and set them up. But there's no, absolute upfront power. Our local government doesn't work that way, really. But I think what Linda said is probably accurate. You build up a rapport with people, you work with them, they get to know you, they trust you, and you go forth, with that representing your jurisdiction well. And we do need to do switches like this. I agree. Some of these appointments are far more technical than others. Some of them have your appointee has far more influence, and maybe you could say power than others. And but almost all of them are what you make of it, the city's representative on that commission. You can be very passive and do nothing and just let staff run the organization, or you can be very active and stand up for our residents or the greater good of the region and really get in it deep. So it varies by individual and assignment.
That helps. Thank you, council member.
So I have a motion and a second. Are we ready for a roll call? Let me actually start. Do we have any public comments on this item? Stacy?
I am looking in Zoom. I don't have any public comment via email. I have no speaker cards, and there are no hands raised in Zoom.
Okay, great. So we're ready to call the question on this motion, and I can reiterate it. So the motion before us is to leave David as the voting member for the Southeast Connector, and replace Budge with Gatewood as the alternate.
Correct.
Any other debate, questions, comments before we take a vote? Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Gatewood.
Nope.
Councilmember Pulapati.
No.
Councilmember Sander.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Budge.
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
No. Okay. So the other one that, again, we have the same kind of issue with is that I believe, Garrett, you missed a meeting and somehow became chair of the Cable Commission.
I actually think Siri is perfectly, and she'll be able to pick up the cable mission, being your background in technology. It's a perfect one for you to start on.
And I would say, as somebody who used to serve on that one, the learning curve I do not think is the same as the other ones. So.
Point of order. We don't know who's going to serve on the connector.
We don't. That's right.
So don't we need to clean up that first?
Nope. I think we could do it all in one motion later. That's why I moved on.
Well, then you might want to express what you think we're going to approve.
I think I already did when I proposed it in January, Linda, but again.
That was January.
I agree. And I've said more than once what my intention was in January, more than once tonight even. So with that, so we have the Cable Commission, the connector, and the SACOG alternate that I proposed. I'm more than willing to make a motion now, but I wanted to leave open for debate if there are any other questions or comments that anybody has, or I can make a motion right now for those three changes, which were the only ones I had intended to make. But if there are other changes that council members would like to make, I think that was the point of bringing it up. And I wasn't the council member to request to put this back in the agenda. So I don't want to be hogging those decisions.
Before we make a motion on that, can I ask council member Sander if he would like to be alternate on the connector?
I'm not quite sure how to play that. I mean, generally, if you make a change in chair mid-year like this, it's definitely viewed by that agency as I was fired from that gig for a reason. That's how it will sound to everybody out there in the real world. So being that I was fired for cause, or at least that's the appearance of it, I'm not sure how to mitigate that.
Thank you, David. You made my point eloquently.
Yeah.
It just, those kind of, I also hesitate to pull Garrett off of a chairmanship for the same reason. It doesn't make us look very consistent or organized. It suggests to the region that, you know, think twice before you put Rancho Cordova in the lead because they may not follow through.
Disarray.
I will reiterate that I gave these changes to the city clerk in December. But we are where we are. And we've had a motion that has failed so far. So if there is another way that somebody, I mean, again, I wasn't the one that asked to put this back on the agenda. I agreed to put it back on the agenda along with, I think, some of my colleagues. So we are where we are. Do we want to make these changes or not? So far, the only motion that we've had so far has failed. So if somebody else wants to make one, I'm happy to make one myself.
So Mayor, let's definitely put this into perspective. This is a perception thing in the first place. We're not firing Councilmember David. We're not firing Councilmember Garrett from their current positions as chair. With Rancho Cordova, there's a lot of perception, and I'm really appreciative of the fact that Councilmember David is going to be the NLC vice president, going to be president. He is the current chair. So from a perception perspective, if this looks like Rancho Cordova is firing a very responsible council member, it does not look well for our city, which was my question was in the first place. Councilmember David did help clarify that, you know, if we have, it does not hold a lot of weight, but if we can get somebody who's really passionate to making a change with the connector, that would help, which both Councilmember Garrett and I are absolutely passionate on making that change. Me personally, because I had an accident on that road and I'm driven to make that change. That is how this whole thing came about for me trying to be an alternate. I don't mind waiting another 6 months, and that's the question in this category. So if waiting another 6 months is going to help the case, or if this motion is passed, again, like I said, I need somebody to explain to me the perception of this whole thing.
Personally, I think that's one interpretation, and David's not wrong in the fact that there have been cities that have changed their appointments, and they literally did it for cause. In this case, it's not for cause. It's because, at least in my intention of suggesting this, it was, again, back in December before any of those decisions have been made. Is that the better time to do it? Yeah, but at the time I couldn't get two other council members to agree on the changes. And then it was brought back and asked to be debated again. So here we are.
Donald.
I'm reiterating what actions I wanted to take in January, and I still consider them to be the right actions, regardless of chairs. And I, you know, if anybody wants to look at this video and wonder, did David get fired from the connector? He didn't. And we all understand that didn't happen. And that's not, if we made the change for the cable commission, what would happen either. The perception that, as far as I know, we've never done this before, and we've never had, you know, normally we make our changes in January, and I can't speak to the fact of why we didn't, because I wanted to, but two of you didn't agree with me. We are where we are.
Donald.
Go ahead.
David can disagree with me if he wants to, or he thinks I'm wrong. But in the almost 20 years that Rancho Cordova has been privileged to have seats on these various boards and commissions, the only time I can personally remember somebody changing as chair in midstream was the year that Heather Fargo was chairing SACOG and was not reelected. And that was not something that her council did. It was because the voters decided the city of Sacramento needed a change.
Yeah, I can tell you, Air District, we've changed and moved Steve Cohn halfway through the year back in as vice chair because Phil Cerna was going to be going to CARB meetings on the same day. And so 4 months into the term, they decided to change it because he had chaired it before and they wanted somebody that had chaired it before. I think we have relatively the same thing when we switched out vice chairs one year too at Air. So there are times that I get, you have your experience, I have mine, and I have seen changes to chairs and changes to members. And a lot of times, David, you're right. They're removed from commissions for cause and for reason. And there are other times they're just removed because they have meetings that started coming up at the same time that they couldn't make or whatever. So there's a multitude of reasons why we would make changes to them. In this case, yes, 2 of you have become chair, and those are the ones that I had intended to change. But we are where we are, and
Mayor, can I make?
Go ahead.
I don't know. Make a motion that these changes go into effect 6 months from now.
Second.
no, we should
Second.
vote on that in 6 months.
Second.
No, we were. This is the change that's going to go into effect 6 months from now.
So let me ask our parliamentarian: is that even allowable? Considering that 6 months from now would be after an election, so we can't vote today to move to take action on something. We would need to vote on it then, right?
I think you could, thank you, Mayor, for the question. I believe you could defer until the election, but I think as to the election, you're right, that if a new council was, you generally wouldn't be taking actions unless there was a specific statutory authority that would be binding on a different council. So you could, potentially take an action subject to a change on the council or something like that. But in general, you can take action on measures with a deferred effective date.
Okay. Siri, do you want to restate your motion?
Yeah. I'll make the motion that these changes take into effect 6 months from now, subject to these council members being in this position 6 months from now.
Second.
For the city clerk and for the public, can somebody please restate what those changes are? We've talked through a lot of different things tonight.
Donna will take over as alternative for SACOG. Garrett would take over as chair. Siri would take over as vice chair. Siri will take over as, and that's for Capital Southeast Connector.
Let's just clarify: voting member and alternate.
Correct. There
So
you go.
starting with SACOG, the voting member would be Terry.
Correct.
The alternate
No.
would,
No.
Sunday.
thank you.
Sorry, hold on. Why are we pushing out SACOG?
No, he wants to be the vice
That
chair.
Here,
was
this is
one of
your motion.
Donald's proposals.
Vice chair.
Okay.
Vice chair. Keep going.
Alternate.
Not vice chair, alternate.
I'm sorry.
So yeah,
I'm messing
hang
her
on.
up.
hang on. So let me, Siri, for and again, this is not the motion. I'm just restating what my intention was in December. My intentions were to switch myself for Budge for SACOG alternate. It was to replace Sander with Gatewood as the voting member for the connector. To move Pulapati in as alternate for the connector. It was to replace Pulapati to replace Gatewood with Pulapati for the voting member for the Cable Commission, and to make Gatewood the alternate for the Cable Commission. Those were my intentions. Siri, this is your motion. You can choose what that looks like. It doesn't have to follow what I just said.
Yes.
She wants those changes.
Second.
Wait, I haven't heard a motion that describes what they want to do yet.
So I understand the motion is.
So there's not much to second just yet.
As I understand it, the motion by Councilmember Pulapati is to move the mayor's requested changes to be effective in 6 months, subject to a individual member who is the subject of the motion being replaced on the council, in which case it would be revisited. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, but then you just had a question about SACOG, about waiting on SACOG.
Yes. That was my question. If both the voting member and the alternate are ready, I don't think why there's nobody chairing that position. That could be done now. So I can revise my motion, removing like SACOG effective immediately, the rest effective 6 months from now.
Second.
Okay. Any questions or debate on the motion? Do we understand what we're voting for?
Yeah.
And not voting on? Are there any other changes that anybody wanted to make to?
Let's go on to other pages because you saw some stuff that wasn't right. Let's go to the next one.
Yeah, but they weren't the big ones.
Okay.
That looks fine.
Next.
Oh yeah, Bob's still doing that one.
We have a motion. Don't we need to vote on it?
Yeah, but to Garrett's point, let's make sure that there's nothing else before we just take that vote. I mean, we can take that vote. You want to take? You know what, Linda, you're right. Let's call the question and have a roll call on what's been proposed, and then we'll review the rest of the pages. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Gatewood.
Yep.
Councilmember Pulapati.
Yes.
Councilmember Sander.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Budge.
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Aye. Okay. That page looks fine to me.
Mr. Mayor, is it possible just for clarification to reiterate the motion that just passed? Because I wanted to be clear that SACOG will go into effect immediately
So Donald's going to go there right now as the vice
As
chair.
alternate.
as the
Yeah.
alternate.
I keep saying vice chair. Gotta
And,
stop that.
and the connector and the cable commission will be effective
Months from now when we're not.
beginning of 2022. And also on the cable commission, I wanted to be clear that Pulipati is the appointee and Gatewood is the alternate?
Yes.
Correct.
It's just flipping what it is currently.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next. Next one.
Yeah, that one looks fine.
Greater, this is library, public library authority. Okay, lower.
That looks fine to me.
Okay, good. Next.
That's fine. We should probably find an alternate. That's interesting. Next one.
Do homeless policy.
Yeah, so it's me and Garrett for Sac City Unified. I'm on all three of those, I thought. So I don't know. Unless you guys meet without me and I missed it, but I swear I was on the call with Jorge.
No, that's correct. I haven't been on Sac City Unified for 2 years.
Yeah.
Something like that, probably.
I think they dumped you instead of Garrett. They dumped me instead of you and left Garrett there. But it should have been the other way around. So I should be on
Yeah,
the Sac.
that's the type.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's the only error I see here is that we need to clean up the Sac City Unified one should be me instead of David. But the rest of those are right. But that was the first page that came up when we saw it. So I knew right then that that one was wrong. But the rest of these look fine.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that we change Sander for Donald.
Do we need to do that? We just need to correct it. It's
I
never
think that's
been.
a correction.
Oh, it's a correction?
Yeah,
It's an
we
error-
don't.
it's
We
an
don't
error
need a
on the
motion.
sheet.
That when we made these a couple years ago, we switched those out on purpose. David hasn't been on it for at least, like you said, like at least I would say more like 4 years. You haven't been on it, David. I think Garrett's been on it pretty much since he got here.
6
Yeah,
years
it
in.
could be that long.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's fix that one, but I think the rest of these are fine. So just to reiterate what action just took place, the only immediate is I'm switching out as the alternate for SACOG. The other two changes will be made the end of this year, essentially. And to keep in mind, there's going to be election between now and then and a different mayor, and these could change anyways. So the normal time to make these changes would be in December. And maybe a lesson to all of us that are here or may be here in 2 years or in 18 months. do this in January, not in June, because you can run into issues like we just had today. Anything else to discuss on regional boards, commissions, and committees?
No, but I'd like the City of Rancho Cordova Asset Naming Committee to come up with updates, what's happening.
Okay. All right, not hearing anything else, let's move on to item 12.2, resolution declaring city-owned property at assessor parcel number blah, 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 Anatolia Drive and whatnot. So, Stefan, we're moving this to you. I believe this is our old fire station, right?
Yes, it is.
Or are we having Stefan? Is he in the room? Is he?
He's in the room. He's getting set up.
Oh, okay. Oh, there you are. Sorry, learn how to toggle between room screenshot and what you're sharing.
Good evening, council and staff and mayor. My name is Stefan Heisler, housing manager for the city of Rancho Cordova. I'll be quickly presenting the declaration of city-owned property as surplus land. So the goals of this presentation to provide high-level overview of the California Surplus Land Act and highlight, it's a high-level overview. I won't bore you with the details. It is kind of an exciting corner of California law that I know too much about now. And then the second is to provide the staff recommendation for declaring city-owned property at 4381 Anatolia Drive as surplus land. So just a really quick overview. The Surplus Land Act prescribes requirements for the disposal of surplus land by local agencies. Prior to disposition, local agencies must declare property surplus land or exempt surplus land and follow a process of notification to specified entities for the purpose of developing affordable housing. And then in 2019, most recently, this process was amended to include a significant new role for the California Department of Housing and Community Development in the reporting and enforcement of the Surplus Land Act. So very quickly, the disposition process for declaring land as surplus. First, the council declares property as surplus land through a resolution, which is the subject of this item tonight. And then secondly, staff prepares and sends a notice of availability to specified parties, which are at minimum the State Department of Housing and Community Development, other public entities, and housing sponsors who have expressed interest in receiving notification to HCD. Third, entities have 60 days to respond to the notice of availability. Fourth, if notice of interest is received, the city must select at least one respondent and negotiate in good faith for a 90-day negotiation period. Following that negotiation period, or if there is no negotiation period, the city provides HCD with a post-negotiation report. And as I mentioned, if no interest is received through that 60 days of notice of availability, or if under that 90-day negotiation period the parties cannot agree on a sales price or lease terms, then the city can dispose of the property outside of the Surplus Land Act. Some important considerations through this as well. The Surplus Land Act does not obligate the city to sell property at below market rate value or to sell property at all, provided that the city is negotiating in good faith. Secondly, the surplus land disposed of outside of the Surplus Land Act must still provide 15% of residential units as affordable housing if 10 or more residential units are developed on the site. And then thirdly, violations of the Surplus Land Act can impose a penalty of 30% of the property purchase price for the first offense and then 50% for subsequent offenses. Those penalties go into a local housing trust fund, which then must be spent to build affordable housing. And as I'm sure eagle-eyed observers have probably noticed that earlier in tonight's agenda with one of our consent items, we did declare a couple pieces of city-owned property as exempt surplus land. The land exchange item with Los Rios on Dawes and Folsom, as those are exempt, as staff has made findings determining from the Surplus Land Act. So tonight, for this item, however, there is a staff recommendation to adopt the resolution declaring the city-owned property at 4381 Anatolia Drive as surplus land and authorize staff to proceed with the Surplus Land Act process. And I think Micah has a couple comments on this as well, so I'll turn it over to him.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Micah Runner, Deputy City Manager. Just wanted to highlight a few things and thank you, Stefan, for presenting that overview. One of the things I want to highlight is as we go through different acquisitions, whether for economic development purposes or general land banking, just that there's a process associated with disposing of these properties that we do acquire. And it's important for, as we're starting to go through these processes, that we utilize these opportunities to surplus the property that we have as proactively as possible if we have an interest in moving forward with the disposition of those properties. So I think we just wanted to highlight that there are limitations when we're going through the disposition process for different properties, and they do have different restrictions associated with it. And so I just want to make sure that as we move forward with these, we understand, and this is relatively the first time that we've gone through this process with the new SLA requirements, the Surplus Land Act requirements, and wanting to highlight that as part of the open session and to be able to answer any questions that council may have on this topic. But as far as this action before you today, this is really only pertaining to this one particular piece of property. You might see more of these Surplus Land Act actions as we move forward with the potential of developing some of these other properties. And I will say, when it comes to real property transactions, sometimes you will wait for interest or you'll wait for different opportunities. But as you saw from the timeline that was presented by Mr. Heisler, there is timelines associated with that, and it keeps us from being able to move quickly. And so we do think it's important to put some of these Surplus Land Act designations out and start the process with both other agencies and with HCD and potentially affordable housing developers that would potentially show interest that we have to negotiate with in good faith for a period of time. So with that, I think we'll continue to ask for staff recommendation to declare this property surplus, but happy to answer any questions if council may have them. Thank you.
Thanks, Micah and Stefan. Do we have any public comment on this, Stacy?
We do not. I am checking Zoom to see if there's any hands that are raised, and I do not see any hands that are raised at this time.
Just a reminder for those on Zoom, raise your hand now or hit *9 to raise your hand if you're on the phone. Although it doesn't look like anybody has called in tonight, which is interesting. Not seeing any hands. I'll bring it back to council. Any questions for staff? Or are we comfortable making a motion and taking action?
I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Siri.
Is this lot big enough to have, how many homes do you think? You said more than 10 homes in general, standard site homes?
Yes, this site in particular is large enough to have more than 10 residential units.
So
I think if you look at that map, you could see just to the right, each one of those units and what would fit maybe in that box. That kind of gives you an idea of the size against single family homes directly across.
Right. That helps. Thank you.
So my question is a technical one like Siri's. Stefan, right offhand, do you know the dimensions of this property? I know 2.8 sounds like a lot, but it also depends on the width and depth.
So it is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2.5 to 3 acres. I couldn't quote you the exact dimensions though.
Okay. Just thinking about things like apartment buildings and typical setbacks. So that was the reason for my question.
Stefan, I have a question too. What is the land currently zoned as now? Because I know we've run into this a handful of times lately of the idea of vested rights. While it's city surplus land, what is it zoned to be at the moment?
Sure. So this property is zoned RD20, which is residential zone with allowing units of density between 18 to 20 units. So a very narrow band of density between 18 to 20 units per acre. That's the current zoning. It is constrained pretty significantly by access. There is no public road access to the site currently, and any future access would require easement over one of the neighboring parcels or some kind of access over the drainage ditch to the east of the site that's maintained by the city. But that would prove very difficult as well.
Yeah, thank you.
So I will move approval of the resolution to authorize the staff to declare this a part of the Surplus Lands Act.
Second.
Second.
Let's see, I think I have a motion by Budge and a second by Poolapati. Hopefully I got that right. I heard more than one voice at the second. Hearing no other comments, roll call, please.
Councilmember Poolapati,
Yes.
Councilmember Sander,
Aye.
Councilmember Gatewood,
Yep.
Vice Mayor Budge,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Aye. Okay. Motion is agreed to. Well, this was a quick agenda. Council requests for future agenda items. Anyone? You can't ask for boards and commissions that can't come up for at least 6 months.
I'd like to request the diversity committee topic to come back on.
What is the diversity committee?
So I'd like to have a committee that focuses on the diversity in our community. It could replicate what the Elk Grove city has in terms of diversity and inclusion. If inclusion means something different, then I would just stick to diversity in our community and have a representation from these communities in order to bring more awareness to that. And then, like I said, we could work with staff to kind of put together a proposal.
Has that been brought up before?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's 2. I will say, sure, we can go ahead and work on it. I would say that we just got our first commission, like actual commission back, which is the planning commission, first time in 13, 14 years, that as much as other cities, West Sacramento, I think, has 26 commissions. I don't know how many Elk Grove does. Replicating them off of neighboring jurisdictions isn't always the best way to approach that. So I don't know if, Cyrus, you want to work with staff and come up with some variables, maybe figure out probably sometime, I'm guessing, in the fall for a workshop?
I think that the request tonight is to put this on the future council agenda for discussion. So I think earliest we could probably do this or plan this for the conversation would be the fall, because we are dark in July, and I understand some council members are traveling. So it would be either be September perhaps, or October.
Yeah, I would add to that if we can, because usually the second most logical step for a city to have a commission besides a planning commission is a public safety commission. And so I would also add that as a topic for us to have some further conversations about how, now whether that is police oversight or it's a public safety or it's something else, I'll leave that to staff to maybe bring us some options for. But normally if there are 2 commissions at a city, it's a planning commission and a police commission.
I was looking
That
more for
tends to be some sort of commission like that. But again, I'm the only one that's asked so far. Are there 2 people that agree with me that would like to work on that as well?
Yes. Let's do that one too. Safety Commission.
Sure.
So
Siri,
That's 3.
Siri, I think you said sure, but just so that the record can hear you. Did you say yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think we should just ask ourselves sort of carefully, like, what the point of a commission is. I mean,
would agree.
planning commission is pretty well defined in state law. It's like a normal organ of government. These others aren't really so defined in state law. It's like it's not a necessary or perhaps even normal commission to have. So I don't think we want to be in the business of creating things with unknown purpose. I think maybe the purpose is really critical.
Yeah,
Sort of
no, I
figure out
totally
what that
agree.
is and
And
what you just said, Donald, about kind of like prioritizing, right? If we're going to invest in commissions, which costs us money, you know, take staff time and resources, what are those decisions going to be about or for? What's the purpose?
You're
Hey,
right.
go ahead, go ahead.
that was definitely my reasoning for saying we want to tread lightly about just replicating what other cities are doing. And again, I'll use the example. I think a lot of us over the years have referred to West Sacramento as an example of what to emulate in this region, and for a bunch of different reasons. But I can tell you one, they have 20-something commissions, and some of them are better than others, and some of them add value, and some of them are distractions. So it depends on exactly what you said, David. What is their charge? What is their mission? And what are they doing? And another good example is Measure H. When we first had the oversight committee, and we reminded them before we were going to pick people what the charge and the mission was, and it wasn't to recommend funding, and it wasn't to weigh in on funding priorities. And you had somebody in the back of the room raise their hand and said, well, if that's the case, I don't want to do it, right? Because I only came to tell you how to spend money.
So
And
Mayor,
once
my request is to put together a proposal, and then we can vote on it if we want to go ahead or not. But like I said, at this point, it's more of, when I talk to the city manager, it's like, let's get consensus on even putting together a proposal.
Well, I think at this point, what I would like to request, council, is we really cannot have a substantive discussion about any of these commissions. I think the request is for a future agenda item for conversation. So I think, putting a proposal together does take some city time and city investment. I think before we go and work on a specific proposal, I would request that we have a conversation with the council, direction from the council, so we know what we're going to focus on and what the goals and objectives are. Because at this point, we don't have enough information to put a proposal together.
Well, and I think what I was trying to get at with from the public safety one, which was my idea, was for staff to come to us with versions and charges and mission statements for both of these types of commissions. See if we can come to an agreement on what we would want these two bodies to do, or if we can't, then we know that we don't need to work on it anymore. So I think at first, kind of what David said, what is the charge and the purpose and the mission of each of these ideas, and can we agree on a format for them and a purpose for them?
Perhaps it's incumbent on the people proposing these commission ideas that they share with staff their own personal goals.
Good point, Linda. I've talked to the city manager, and my understanding was I got to bring in a proposal before I have this conversation, but I will now go back and kind of put together a proposal and then work with it before we come back.
Lovely idea.
Sounds good. Any other requests for future agenda items? Linda, I don't have any names written down as folks that we're going to adjourn in the memory of. Right? I didn't miss that?
No, fortunately not tonight.
Okay.
Thank goodness.
So with that, and so with that, we will adjourn to closed session, and we'll be back at some point to report out. Thanks, everyone.
Recording in progress.